Hello once again and welcome to Yesterday's Airlines. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at the Phoenix April 2025 announcements. Now I know it is the 1st of May where I am, but I took a short break and therefore I'm a little behind schedule, so apologies for that. These release announcements from Phoenix were announced I think about 10 to 14 days ago, so not a long time ago, mid-April, and they really do deserve a closer look because Phoenix, as I've been saying for some time now, has been doing a really stellar job in the past couple of years and has been making a much broader and more interesting set of models and using some of their better molds in the process as well. So there's almost always something that's really nice coming out from Phoenix each month. It's gone very much from a case of me almost never buying Phoenix to buying one or two Phoenix models almost every month. And this month is no different. There is a really nice selection of 21 models that have been announced by Phoenix in this set using some of their best molds. And on top of that, Phoenix have announced a brand new mold, in fact, two brand new molds really, and they look to be some of the most exciting releases of the year. And I'm really looking forward to discussing those and really looking forward to seeing what else they release using them. So stay tuned to check out what Phoenix has got coming up in this announcement set because it is pretty good. Now, if you haven't already, don't forget to chuck a like on the video and subscribe to the channel here at YouTube. Really appreciate everyone who does subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. Also, don't forget to check me out at Instagram at Yesterday Airlines, where I post a lot of material, almost something or one or two things actually, usually most days. And don't forget also to check out yesterdaysairlines.com, the website where I produce a lot of written work and there's a lot of information in detail about the scale, really, basically. This week so far, I've talked about Aero Polaris quite a bit. They've announced some new 737s just in the last few days, so I put a post out about that. And I've also written a model review of Aero Polaris's first Airbus A350, which is a really nice model, but admittedly one that looks just like the Panda version. But that doesn't make it not good. It looks really nice. So check out those for some of the recent content. But let's get on and see what Phoenix are offering. At least we will do after a quick word about my sponsor. So this video is sponsored by Northeast Diecast. Have been sponsoring me now for a few weeks, and I'm really liking the models that Matt at Northeast Diecast has for sale. He gets a lot of older releases in, and if you're worried about prices from tariffs and things, then this is an opportunity to look back at some of the classic releases that have come out in the past and see what you can pick up, because he gets a lot of really good old Aero classics, old Dragon, even some older NG stuff there, and there's a really good diversity of models available at this site. And you get an extra 15% off if you use the special code Yesterday's Airlines 15. So whilst you're browsing the site and picking up models from Northeast Diecast, don't forget to use the code Yesterday's Airlines 15 for 15% off your order. Okay, cool. Now let's get on and check out what Phoenix are throwing our way with this April announcement set for models that I imagine will appear around June or July. So we're going to start off this 21 model announcement set with 9 Airbus products, and the first one up is a Kuwait Airways A321neo registered 9K Alpha Quebec Alpha. This is Kuwait's first A321neo, and it's good to see some Kuwaiti short-haul equipment. There hasn't been a great deal. I was surprised that the A320neo hadn't got much attention, but Aviation Deal has recently made that Panda retailer exclusive. But from a broader perspective, outside of retail exclusives, there really hasn't been very much on modern Kuwait Airways narrow bodies. So good to see an A321neo announced here. Phoenix are not the first to announce this. JC Wings announced it, or in fact, they've announced it almost exactly the same time. I guess the aircraft's just coming into service. But obviously, the JC Wings announcement is going to be for a future model, not one that's going to get out in the next couple of months. So Phoenix is going to get there first with the end product. I'm not an enormous fan of the Phoenix A321neo, as you're probably aware, but it's not a disaster. It does still remind me a bit of a Tu-204, but it's okay, you know, and Phoenix A320s and 321s can still look okay, but they're not typically a model that I myself would buy. There are much better A321 moulds out there in the marketplace, from the likes of Panda or NG, HYJL, if they're still making, I think they are now. So there are alternatives out there for A321s, and there will be more coming soon as well, I am sure, from brands like HX Models. So there are alternatives, and it's possible that this Kuwait A321 will be made by somebody else, possibly NG, I'm guessing, but I don't know for certain. So I struggle to put this mould up into high flyer, and I think I'm going to keep it at workhorse for this model. I do like the livery. I do like the look of the face mask on these new Airbuses. I think it looks good, and this has good potential, but the mould is keeping it down into workhorse territory for me. Next up, we've got a Chinese A330. We've got the A330-200, wearing the Harbin Games, the Asian Winter Games livery. It's B5937. NG just announced the A320 that's wearing, I think it's almost the same scheme, if not exactly the same scheme. They didn't announce the A330, which is a bit surprising. This should be, again, really nice. I like the livery. It's a nice special scheme. It's quite classy, as I do find quite a lot of Chinese schemes quite classy, the special liveries, and this one I think is too. The Phoenix A330-200 has had some issues recent times, but I have seen pictures of the Air Algerie release, and I'm told that Phoenix have fixed the issues they had with the wings. So I think this one should turn out pretty nice, to be honest. But again, much like the A321 we just spoke about, I would prefer to get it from another brand if it's going to be made. So I'm interested to see whether NG make this. I do prefer their A330 mould. But this one should still be really nice, and it's certainly one I'm going to keep an eye on, and I may pick up. I'm going to put this one up into high flyer. We've got quite a few A330, A340s this month, and that's not a bad thing because the Phoenix A330 and 340 moulds are pretty decent overall. The next one up is a Series 300 A330. This one is PK GPY. It's Garuda Indonesia. It is wearing another Pokemon scheme. It's a Pikachu jet, so it's got a couple of Pikachus on it wearing a kind of very colourful shirt. Actually, even though I've given Pikachu liveries a bit of a slating historically, this one is less offensive, and actually I quite like it. It's just less busy than a lot of Pikachu and a lot of Pokemon related schemes. It doesn't bother me anywhere near as much, and I quite like the background aspect of the scheme, which looks like it's got a lot of Pokeballs, and yeah, I quite like it. I think this one will be quite good. I'm going to put this one up in high flyer as well, which is unusual for Pokemon scheme, but this one's not bothering me. I should also say this one has also just been announced by JC Wings, so there's some release mirroring going on here. But again, the JC one is going to be away in the future, I feel. The last A330 of this month is a Series 900, so it's a Neo. This one is registered HZMDA, and I believe it's operated by an organisation called Desert Wings Aviation. But when you actually look at the aircraft, it doesn't look like it's actually been delivered yet. And it says that it was originally supposed to go to Jet Aviation Flight Services Malta. So I'm not really sure what the deal is here, but I get the feeling that it's passed from them to Desert Wings Aviation. And it's been seen in photographs in this Kingdom of Saudi Arabia scheme. So presumably it's going to Saudi Arabia and to operate with a Saudi flight. I don't know much about that. But regardless, it looks like it'll be a private aircraft, and no doubt it's got a very nice interior. The scheme is pretty good. It's quite an attractive Saudi scheme. It's got the kind of the classic Saudi logo on the tail with I think it's a tree anyway, and the two crossed swords. But the other aspects of the livery are smart. It's definitely got that luxury jet vibe going to it, and it looks pretty good. This should make a nice model. It's not something that I'm likely to buy, but I can appreciate that it is pretty good. The Phoenix A330 Neo is okay. Yet again, it's not top of the line, but it's not bottom of the line either. It's a perfectly good mold. So again, I think this is a pretty decent model, and I don't really have any dramatic issues putting this one up into high flyer as well. Now we move off into the 4-engine aspects of the A330 340s. So we're into the 340s, and we start with a really old one. We've got a House Colours Series 200 F Whiskey Whiskey Bravo Alpha, and this one's got the World Ranger titles on it, which are kind of in pink. It's a bit pink, really. But there hasn't been a lot of A340-200 action, and this one has a lot of potential. There has been a release of this, but it was in 1999 by Dragon Wings, so that one clearly is obsolescent. This one should be really good. I think this one will be really nice. It is only the second release of a Series 200 A340 in House Colours, and it's a model that I'm very tempted to acquire. I'm going to do this one up into Supersonic. This one fits all the criteria that I'm looking for. It's got House Colours, it's got an interesting livery, great aircraft type, good mould. Slam dunk. Next up, we've got a Series 300 A340. This one doesn't excite me as much. It's SAS. The registration is OY Kilo Bravo Delta. There has been a little flurry of SAS A340s in the sense like JC Wings announced one in February. They announced KBM. I'm not sure why both brands have decided to release one now, considering the aircraft is out of service for some time, but they have. There has been previous versions of this as well. There's been a couple by Panda in 2018. There was another JC in 2016. There was an Aero Classics in 2013. And there was a Phoenix version all the way back in 2011. And that Phoenix version, which was a Norwegian registered example in 2011, looked pretty good. As you'd expect, because I like this mold, and it generally looks good. I would say the Panda ones are probably the best, but this one should be really nice too. Not sure what to do with it from a rating perspective. It's not a model that I'm going to buy, and there is some competition out there, but I think it'll be better than the JC version. Hasn't won for a while. I'll put this one up in the high flyer as well. So it's really hard for me not to high fly these A340s. Generally, they're going to be good models, and the subject matter is a good choice. The last of them this month is a Series 500, and this one is in Air Canada. It's CG Kilo Oscar Mike, and it's in the toothpaste scheme, which I was never an enormous fan of, I admit. But actually, this version might have kind of the hybrid where you've got the white fuselage and the frosted tail. I'm not entirely certain, to be honest. It's a little hard to tell. I'm not entirely certain about that, but it doesn't dramatically make a big difference anyway. This one, again, should be really nice. I did pick up a Phoenix A340-500 not that long ago in the Airbus House Colours, and I was very pleased with that model. It turned out very nicely. It's an excellent mould, and this one should look really good. I think that this scheme actually probably suits the A340-500 quite well, but it's such an attractive aircraft that it's hard not to have a scheme that fits it well. It's just well proportioned. It's not too long like 600, and the engines are bigger unlike the 300. So I think the proportions of the A340-500 are really good. There hasn't been another Air Canada A340-500 for a long, long time. 2013 was the last time one was released, and that's by Phoenix 2. So it's been a long, long time. There were a few before that. None of them are going to win any Oscars. We've got a Dragon Wings and a Gemini, and those are both from 2005, 2006. So this one should easily outclass those. This one should be a really good model. So good, in fact, that I'm willing to put this one, I think, into Supersonic. Something about it just is appealing to me. And that brings us towards the end of the Airbuses for this month, but not completely at the end. We've got two left, and the first one up is the Swiss A350-900 HBIFA, which I've spoken about already previously because it has been announced by JC Wings already. It's in this Wanderlust scheme. there's not much more to say than I said last time. The aircraft hasn't been painted yet. The scheme has been announced. There are some images around. It's not entirely certain that it won't be changed, so you are potentially getting an inaccurate model if you buy it before the aircraft is made, but it's not unreasonable risk to take. The livery looks really interesting, but the Phoenix A350 isn't my favourite by some distance, so I'm just going to put this one into workhorse. I think it's not doing a great deal for me, given the fact the aircraft doesn't exist yet. The scheme could change, and the mould is, not spectacular either. The last Airbus is a Airbus A380. We've got 9V Sierra Kilo Lima, Singapore Airlines. Solid release from Phoenix. There's been a couple of years gone by since the last time we saw a Singapore A380 in the standard scheme. It was an Aviation 400 version from December 2022, which I already own. Previous to that, there'd been a lot of JC Wings versions, and there was also a Phoenix version in 2022 as well. So it's been a few years, but this, I imagine, is a very solid seller in Asia, a Singapore A380, so completely understandable that they're releasing another one. There have been, all up, now 49 Singapore A380s, but there are various different schemes, so they're not all the same. The Phoenix mould, very nice. Probably in third place nowadays, though, behind the Aviation 400 and the HX models A380s, which are both exemplary, but it's still a good mould, and this should be a fine model, but it's not going to get out of workhorse with me. And that brings us to the end of the Airbus component of this release set. We move on to the Boeing contingent, of which there are 7 models this month, beginning with a Japan Airlines 737-800, which is the second month in a row I've been talking about Japan Airlines 737-800s with a Phoenix video, because last month they released one as well in the standard scheme. This one, JA342 Juliet, is in a special livery, which is advertised in the Expo, the 2025 Expo in Osaka, but also has a Gundam element to the rear of it, which it's very, very Japanese, isn't it? I guess I was never a big Gundam fan. I guess I'm not sure it even really got to the UK, to be honest, and Transformers was always my thing, which admittedly is also technically Japanese. But yeah, the scheme is fine. It's a bit of a mess of a scheme, because you've still got the Expo elements of that strange, weird creature logo. But the Gundam bit looks pretty cool. It perhaps would look better with more Gundam and less Expo, but hey, it is what it is. The rest of the livery, or the rest of, thinking about this model, comes down to the mould as always. I'm not a big fan of the Phoenix 737. It has definitely improved by quite a strong margin, but it's still not the best. So yeah, I'm just going to this one into workhorse. It doesn't upset me by any means, but it is also just a kind of very workhorsey model from my perspective. That's the only narrow-body Boeing we have this month. And we move now into the inevitable set of Korean Air new colours aircraft. So we've got a 747-8 HL7638, a 777-300ER HL8008, and a 787-10 HL8515. I feel like I've talked about the scheme a bit already. I know there's been a huge amount of discussion about it online. It doesn't do much for me. It's basically the gist of it. It's too simple. It's kind of boring. It doesn't look anywhere near as good as the previous livery. The logo isn't as good. The titles are too big. And it really doesn't seem to suit the 747, in my opinion. So, yeah, I don't like the scheme at all. It does look a bit better on the 777, and probably looks best, in my opinion, on the 787s, but still not really loving it. It's disappointing. When it comes to the moulds being used here, they're definitely fine, but they're definitely mid-range. Much like quite a few of the moulds we've talked about here so far, the 747-8, there's a better version out there with NG. There's a better version out there probably with HX2. When you look at the 777, again, there's better versions, in my opinion, with NG, with AV400, and JC Wings. And when you look at the 787, yeah, it's fine again, but there's better versions out there from JC Wings, Gemini, and NG. So there are better versions out there, and I don't like the livery. I'm just going to workhorse the three of these, to be honest. They're really not doing much for me at all, that trio. The remaining three Boeing models this month are a little bit better, I think. The first one up is a 767-300. This one's in the colours of Air Do of Japan, JA612 Alpha is the registration. It's quite a nice scheme, the Air Do scheme. It's an airline that doesn't get a lot of publicity outside of Japan, understandably, but the scheme is pleasant enough. It's always good to see Phoenix 767s. I know there are other molds out there which are probably better nowadays, certainly the Panda one, but I don't think we're going to like to see many Japanese models on that mould, unfortunately. So this one is definitely a very viable option for what is quite a nice livery. It has been made before in scale, but not since 2014. Gemini Jets produced a version of it, and that version actually looks pretty good from the small number of pictures I've seen, and it's got aerials too. So that's a perfectly good mould. I probably wouldn't replace it with this one if I already had it, but this one is still perfectly nice, and I'll put it up in the high flyer. Next, we've got another airline which is inevitably getting a lot of releases because they've modified their livery slightly, and that's Cathay Pacific. So we've got a large Titles 777-300, not an ER, just a 300, and the registration is Bravo Hotel November Quebec. There hasn't been a release of a large Titles Series 300 non-ER yet, as far as I'm aware, so this one is likely to come out from other brands as well in the near future, I would argue. As I've said already, Phoenix 777's perfectly good, not the best, perfectly good. This one is sure to sell well regardless. I'll put it in high flyer. I think it'll be okay. And the last last Boeing of the month, apologies, is KLM, and it's a 7879 PH-BHF. Now, if you're not aware, KLM have relatively recently slightly tweaked their livery with their first A321s. They've moved the blue area in the forward part of the aircraft so that it covers the entire nose cone to facilitate nose cone changes. And so there is a slight mod to the livery here, which is being worn by PH-BHF, which you can see in the picture now has that logo or that livery modification applied to it. And this is, as far as I'm aware, the first time that this updated version of the scheme has been released in 400 scale. Even though there have been lots of other KLM 787s, this is the first time that this scheme with the modified front has been made. So, yeah, I think it will get made by others, and the Phoenix 787 isn't the best, but again, it's not a bad model by any means. So I'll put this one on the high fly as well. They got there first. Kudos to them. And that finishes off the Airbuses and the Boeings, but unusually we still have a reasonable number of other models to discuss. There are 5 in fact, and the first 2 are really where the news is this month for Phoenix, because Phoenix has announced a brand new pair of Ilyushin 62 molds. We've got the IL-62 with the original engines with a scalloped rear to them, and we've got the IL-62M, which has the clamshell thrust reversers, so very different look to the rear engines there. Really, really pleased to see these new molds from Phoenix. It's been quite a bumper few years for Soviet era aircraft molds in the scale. A lot have just been announced at the HEC Expo in Beijing, and these 2 are really core aircraft from that period. And the IL-62 with the original engines has never had a mould in 400 scale thus far, and yet there are quite a few classic airline liveries to be made on it, which makes it a really important missing area for the scale. So exceptional to see these new molds from Phoenix. We've only seen a few photos thus far of the mold. The one you're looking at the moment here is an early sample, doesn't have the undercarriage fitted, but it's looking very promising, and can't say that I'm not super excited about this. So thank you very much, Phoenix, for working on this type. I think these are going to be really good, and hopefully they will mirror the success that the IL-96-400s have had. The first two models announced this month using these new molds, one of them is an IL-62 and one is an IL-62M. The 62 is registered CCCP or SSSR 86675, and it's wearing the delivery colours from Aeroflot. This was back before Aeroflot standardised its livery, I think in 73, when each aircraft type had its own livery, and the IL-62 had this scheme with the blue rudder and these double blue pinstripe sheet lines under the windows. And yeah, really looking forward to seeing this. I think should look marvellous. The IL-62M we're getting, this one is a little more obscure and unusual. This one is in the colours of the Russian Ministry of Emergency Situations, EMACOM, and it is registered RA 86570. Personally, this one's probably a little too obscure for me to buy, but it's really hard not to be excited. There's so much potential for IL-62s. Up till now, we've just got one or two occasional models from JC and Gemini, spread over a vast period of time. You've really not had a lot, and none of them have been the earlier variant because we've only had the 62M mold. So these two, hopefully the dawn of a new age for IL-62s in 400 scale, and I think that Phoenix will use the mold more regularly than Gemini and JC have done so. So exceptional. Clearly, I'm going to put these two up into supersonic because they are clearly going to be really exciting models. Even though I probably will only buy the Aeroflot version, super excited about what the future holds for the 62. And moving from a brand new mold in 400 scale, or two new molds from Phoenix, we move to a mold they've rediscovered just last month when they announced a Finnair MD-80. And this month we've got two more MD-80s, and these are in the colours of China Northern. We've got B2126 and B2136. The difference between the schemes here is quite small. 2136 has entire China Northern Airlines titles. B2126 just says China Northern, and has smaller titles or shorter titles. But otherwise the schemes are quite similar. China Northern was for a long time the biggest MD-80 operator in China, and it was taken over, and most of its aircraft passed to, and I can't for the life of me remember which airline took it over. It was either China Southern or China Eastern. I'm pretty sure it was China Southern, but I'm not entirely certain. But either way, most of the MD-80s passed on to them in around 2001, but it was a big carrier, one of the big six in the 90s, and there has been no China Northern MD-80s made in the scale up to this point in time. So these are both really good selection choices. It's entirely possible, in fact likely, that you will see NG models versions of these, but you never can tell. When it comes to the mould, I've previously said that I don't think the Phoenix MD-80 is particularly great. I've only got one, a Jetsco example, and that's quite old. The mould does look a bit chunky, especially around the nose. But I'm told that Phoenix have been working on this a little bit, and in fact I've got a picture here that was provided to me by Phoenix showing the sample when they first got out and dusted it off, and to be honest it does look a bit better, but it's hard to tell, and the proof of the pudding, as always, will no doubt be in the eating. It is a slightly old mould, it's a seamed mould, and you've got a tail seam too, so this isn't a new 2025 standard mould as of such, but it still is potentially a reliable mould. It can't compete with the NG, but it's not like NG are producing a huge number of MD-80s each month either, so it is good to have a bit of competition here. I'm not entirely sure whether I should be buying these or waiting, but I am really tempted. I may well get one of these ones, especially because I want to see what the mould looks like and perhaps give it a review. So yeah, China Northern is certainly an airline that fits well into my collection criteria. I'll put both these up into High Flyer. And we finished the month with an MD-11 in FedEx new colours, i.e. lacking anything on the engines and removing the Express. And the aircraft that we have in these new scheme is N620 FE. I'm not sure the scheme fits the MD11 as well as it does some of the other types, to be honest. But this, nonetheless, will presumably be popular in the States if, indeed, it ever gets there. Obviously, tariffs are proving to be a major problem at the moment for getting models into America. And if you're unaware, then the majority of new models going into the States are basically they're on pause. And they may be accepting orders, but fundamentally they're not really accepting the models, so it's unclear when they're going to show up. Regardless of that, this should be quite nice. Phoenix made FedEx MD11 in the older colours in September last year. There hasn't been, as far as I'm aware, a version in this scheme yet, so this is the first one of these coming out. You do have to accept the Phoenix MD11 mould, which is pretty old now, but they have at least got the landing gear all level, so it's better off than it did used to be. My big negative here is that the Panda MD11, which has come out now and has started to get used a bit here and there, I've got 6 of them to date, is so good. It's really, really good. And I would much prefer to buy this model on the Panda mould rather than the Phoenix one. But that doesn't make the Phoenix model bad. I think it'll be fine. Much like a lot of the models in this set, Phoenix are producing great models, not always on the best molds, but they're not dreadful either. And I'm going to put this one just into Workhorse, I think, because of that reason. But it's a solid release. Okay, and that brings us to the end of this video. 21 Phoenix announcements for April ranked. It's another solid set from Phoenix. There's a lot of interesting models announced in here. There's a lot of colourful new models with special schemes like the Garuda and that China Eastern and the Japan Airlines. You've got some really up-to-date, ultra-modern liveries and updated schemes from Cathay, Korea and KLM. But you've also got some really nice classics coming from Phoenix 2 here with that House Colours Series 200 and obviously those IL-62s and the MD-80s. So it's a good diverse set showing exactly why Phoenix has really risen up, I think, a lot of people's rankings in terms of the quality and interest of the models they're producing. And once again, for me, I'm looking at this list and I could easily be buying 4 or 5 of these models quite comfortably. So another good set from Phoenix, and long may that continue. Really looking forward to seeing some new 62s later in the year. I assume they'll be releasing 1 or 2 every month from this point forward. Okay guys, well thank you very much for watching. Really appreciate that. Don't forget to chuck a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Chuck a comment about which Phoenix releases from this set you're looking to buy and which ones interest you the most. And I'll see you soon for the next ranking video, which will probably be the April Gemini Jets releases. Thank you very much. Goodbye for now.